Morning sir, I'm Zach Jean from Group 1 Seri Muka, and today we'll be presenting about racism in Malaysia. In the current situation of the world, racism is a big issue happening everywhere and must be addressed in order to end it. So first and foremost, we should know, what is racism? Racism is the prejudice, discrimination or antagonism by an individual, community or institution against a people or person of a particular racial ethnic group, usually one that is a minority or marginalized. It is also the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or even qualities to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. Moving on. There are two types of racism, institutional racism and daily racism, but I will only explain further on institutional racism. It is racism that happens at a more macro level, embedded and enshrined in laws and regulations of a society. This can lead to discrimination based on race in education, employment, criminal justice, healthcare, and politics. For example, vernacular education system in Malaysia divides students according to their race, as well as employment and housing systems, which are often observed to use race-based selection criteria. For example, the picture shown is discrimination against someone's race by only looking for Chinese to rent their room to. Or in a Facebook post where a politician reportedly used an offensive term to refer to our local badminton player.
My name is Nurul Jasmina. I'm going to talk about two factors contributing to racism discrimination. The first factor is media representation. Media such as books, movies, televisions, and news represent how race is viewed by society. While the media is a reflection of culture at large, it keeps the racial stereotypes alive and thus it fuels racism. Racism in the media is often subtle and it's without any malicious intent, but it has incredibly negative effects. The second factor is discriminatory policies. Housing laws are a prime example for this. Many laws have kept black people from owning houses in certain neighborhoods and preventing them from accumulating wealth. Society looks at this and believes how black people only live in low-income, crime-ridden neighborhoods and that's somehow a choice.
Bodoh, balik kampung ayo, stuff like that.
To train people moving away from you.
They're ready to just put themselves at an uncomfortable position just so that they won't sit next to another black person.
People have always been put under the last pillar of humanity.
There's this thing called the racial hierarchy, where it's the white man, white woman, everyone in between, black man, black woman.
Hi everyone, I'm Kam and I will present about the effect of racism. The first effect of racism is effect on emotional. Damaging effect on mental health, for example, distress, depression, and anxiety. It humiliates, dehumaniates, and goes to the heart of identity and dignity. It may cause change in behavior and routine of an individual. Lastly, it may cause suicide of an individual. The second effect is effect on physical injuries and their effect which may lead to ill physical and mental health. They will cause loss or damage to property and lastly will cause premature of death. The third effect is effect on social, effect on their social life. It may cause an individual become feared of new places or joining new groups, and cause lack of confidence in public spaces. And lastly, they will cause an individual become disconnection from the community. That's all from me.
Everyone, I'm Shivita and I'm going to be presenting on 5 solutions created by the global agency or foreign organization. First of all, I'll be talking about the United Nations. They launched a new campaign to fight racism. Learn, speak up, act. Everyone, especially young people, has the rights to learn about human rights, including the history of racism, slavery, colonialism, and their legacies in structural inequalities and discrimination that still plague societies today. This campaign stresses that everyone should also be taught about human rights tools that can be used to fight against oppression, racism, and discrimination. Moving on to the second, World Bank Group Anti-Racism Charter. The World Bank Group Anti-Racism Charter was launched externally as part of Law, Justice and Development Week, an annual event that focuses this year on law, racial equity and development. This charter was created in response to recommendations from the World Bank Group Anti-Racism Task Force, whose mandate is to provide concrete recommendations to the President and senior leadership and on how to end racism and racial discrimination within the organization and its program and communities. Next, I'll be passing the slide to Darshini.
Everyone, my name is Darshini and I'm gonna be talking about Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, OHCHR. There's 2 parts underneath. So the first one is promote and protect all human rights, which means they speak out objectively in the face of human rights violations and help elaborate the standards that are used to evaluate human rights progress worldwide. Next, help empower people. Their research, education, and advocacy activities contributes to the increased awareness and engagement by the international community and the public of human rights issues. This means thousands of people in all regions of the world are empowered to claim their rights. Next agency is European Network Against Racism, ENAR. The ENAR is the only pan-European network combining racial equality advocacy with forming a strong anti-racist network across Europe. They are a strong and dynamic network of over 150 NGOs working to combat racism everywhere in Europe. ENAR's aim is to end structural racism in the European Union and to build structures, institutions, and attitudes based on race equality and equal distribution of power, privileges, and rights. The last agency I'm going to be talking about is the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. The ACLU works in the courts, legislatures, and communities to defend and preserve the individual rights and liberties guaranteed to all people in this country by the Constitution and laws of the United States. They are also committed to combating racism in all its forms. That's all from us, and thank you, everyone.
So the 5 examples of racism discrimination related to global issues are Malays receive heavily subsidized education at local universities and constitute the majority of these institutions, including in terms of employment. Around 4,500 years ago, a subgroup from Borneo moved to Champa in Vietnam and relocated to Kelantan, Malaysia. These groups have DNA and linguistic roots that can be traced back to Taiwan, if not to southern China. However, given The polarization caused by various policies under the Bumiputra policy, the Malay and Chinese and also Indian communities in Malaysia today appear to be at odds with each other at times. Chinese Malaysians were mostly isolated in the mining regions where they worked during the colonial era. Furthermore, some Chinese Malaysians had settled near major towns, while Malays had established their own villages. The legacy of Mahathir's Malay supremacy, despite the fact that he is only half Malay, because his father is from Kerala, India, he has created a Sikhism in Malaysian society.
Indeed, in 2017, Mahathir implied the former Prime Minister Najib Razak was a robber because of his Buginese ancestry. In the runner-up of Malaysia's 2018 elections, which Mahathir won, he stoked anti-Chinese sentiments by warning of an influx of foreigners property owners. Such exploitation of race and religion for power has shattered Lee Kuan Yew's concept of a Malaysian Malaysia, with talent fleeing of foreign countries due to exclusive job opportunities for Malays. Malay is currently Malaysia's national language. While it is unique that more than four languages are widely spoken in Malaysia today, which is English, Malay, Chinese, and Tamil. Ethnic languages are primarily used by ethnic groups. The divide is quite visible, particularly in West Malaysia, because Malays attend Malaysian national schools while the Chinese and Indians have established their own vernacular schools emphasizing their respective languages.